Yes?
Real quick answer. Do you find that the negative means can create sort of an isolation and sort of a pseudo-developmental sociopath?
Yes, absolutely. Right. One of the things that we find is, and if we follow the model down, right, someone who's driving towards B, or is at B and can't find a behavior that works, is going to be very careful of resource, and as a result, they're going to begin to push people away. Right. And okay, so having developed this stuff and used it and all that, I've actually had my beautiful, lovely wife of 22 years turn to me and say, "I don't want you to do anything nice for me right now." Okay, because all right, she was right. And but it is time people will push away sometimes under extreme stress. Almost like, I don't want to feel better, but really, if you're here, I don't have as much control. So yes, we actually can see it develop later in life under extreme conditions, right? Again, you can't talk to them, right? You really can only offer a resource, right? And really mean it, which can be tough. Yes?
Question, Energizer Bunny syndrome, person that's always working, always has to do things, cannot trust other people to do the job, they must do it themselves, probably overworking. What level do you find them out to be, and how do you move them out of that?
Actually, we tend to find them strongly at ACT. Right? There has to be a set of activities constantly repeated, a set of behaviors in the way that they engage with other people, things like that. And then people, people at that point, in order to move them, right, the way that you help someone at ACT is you trust them with the result. You offer a resource, you say, look, this is your job, here's your structure, you're already there, right? Here's your decision to make, and here's the resource. Right? And you almost kind of walk away and just let them make the decision as they want. What we find that happens in that case is at first they can't believe it. Right? They won't believe that you're trusting them with that decision. Right? They'll think, though, there's something wrong. They're going to change their minds, or I'm not really going to be able to affect it. What they need to see is their decision put into place. And when they see it begin to affect other people around them, right, then the feedback, the observation, assuming sense of belonging is working, right, as they see their decision affect other people's lives, then they will begin to self-balance a little bit as it works. Now, again, when we do cultural design, when we do cultural change, we have cultural engineers on site, right, every day affecting these memes, monitoring them, measuring them. We measure the rate of assimilation within the organization in order to update our models and predict which things need to be expressed on which meetings, for example. But it is possible to move someone who's in that spot. The concept we affect them with, that we implant or get them to assimilate, is called separation of concerns. And separation of concerns is an ability to say, I'm going to assume that the people who came before me and wrote that document or captured that requirement or came up with this design did the very best job they could. And if I've got a question, I'll assume they've answered it and I'll go look for it first. When that's operating, you've moved them out of that area. They're not worried about things beyond their purview so much because they're trusting the other people that they work with. Hey, yes?
I'm just kind of curious why you use the term culture engineer versus social psychologist. What's behind that?
Yeah, actually the selection of that term took a while. Right, as we looked at, is it a social psychologist? Is it, what are we really? Is it change agent? Is it things like that? When you're dealing with intentionally designed culture, right? What we actually create. Everyone here or anyone here know software development processes pretty well? Okay, so we actually create 5 models at 5 different layers of abstraction, very similar to the way that software development is built, or software is built. And we start with business models, with cultural models, and things like that, and drive into system models or analysis models for meme expression, and into design models, and then into implementation models. And so we actually apply engineering techniques to that in terms of measurement of the result, planning for that implementation, encapsulation and decoupling of these different memes so that they operate correctly together within the organization. And so the closest term we could find was cultural engineering, things like that. I suppose someday somebody will say, well, you're not really an engineer because you're not certified, and so we'll deal with that one day. But it's as close as we could find. Yes.
Well, when you're doing that with let's say, with software, you probably have a process engineer.
Yes.
You have a technical or technology engineer, basically.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. Something that wasn't part of the presentation. Intentionally designed culture has been married with another open source process we developed called the minimum path to quality. And the minimum path to quality is a very lightweight, very rapid process for knowledge workers. Right? So we developed that because software development is only one type of knowledge work. There's plenty of other knowledge work out there. And so what we did is we integrated, in fact explicitly integrated, the activities and artifacts and results and designs for cultural engineering into a process for knowledge work. And by doing that, we've made it possible to effect a cultural change under the guise, if you will, of standing up an SDLC process or changing your compliance measurement with some regulatory body. Or we've even had verticals developed for this for training high school students in life skills. We have another group developing verticals for college students in the application of minimum path and intentionally designed culture to helping college students study and get a higher grade point average. In fact, coaches around the world are really interested in that. Because, they get, if I can boost, we're seeing a 30% improvement in GPA, by the way, off of the field test for that one. It's really amazing. Yeah, football coaches love it. Nothing as football players, right? But football coaches love that. We've seen it specialize. Actually, we have verticals for software development, verticals for training development, and things like that. And as those verticals develop, then more people pick it up and run with it. We've had conversations about verticals for regulatory compliance. Specifically, we're actually doing a project where we're using minimum path with intentionally designed culture right now for payment card industry compliance. Right, so that your credit card data is accurately protected, at the 5th largest distributor in the world. And so what we find is that by marrying those things together, we have 3 roles. One's a cultural engineer, the other is a process engineer, and the other is a technology engineer. And we combine together the cultural change with supporting process changes and technology changes, and in a certain pattern that runs through. A typical component delivery within minimum path is 2 weeks. A typical project size is going to be 20 to 28 components. And we can usually run 2 components at a time as we drive through. We've also combined into there a process governance model called Process Commonwealth, another open source process for governing process development, process measurement, process change, continuous improvement. And it covers everything from a frustration button we put on the desktop, so when people are using the process and they say, this isn't working, they've got a button to hit, it opens up an email and says, I feel frustrated because, and they start typing. And the idea is to get them to vent. Now, we always have to promise that the people who read that never share that vent. Right? They come back and they interview the person, find out what the problem was, get it fixed, bring it into what's called a process lab. And in process lab, the other people who deal with process on a daily basis work to resolve that issue, share that knowledge, and then make recommendations to a process council, whose job it is to integrate that change across the organization and across different roles, and finally to a process executive whose job is to pay for it, frankly. And so, so as those things tie together into that one minimum path to quality process, we find that almost every time when when we get brought in for cultural design, it's in the context of affecting a specific type of change, whether it's training or software development process or other business process compliance or change, things like that. Very good. Other questions? Anything else? Okay, that's it. So there are also a couple of websites that we can send out. Minimum Path to Quality, Intentionally Designed Culture, Process Commonwealth. We formed we, being the people that help develop it and maintain it, formed a corporation for the purpose of maintaining and developing that. And that corporation's name is Symetosphere. We have one of the principals here tonight. All right, Dan. It's over there. He's one of my partners in this. And the another one, I actually work as the tools practice lead for iconatg.com, and they will sell you minimum path services right now. And sign right up for it. And then Ivar Jacobson Consulting also offers services based on this. Yeah, it's open source. You'll never pay for the process. It's free to use, free to maintain. If you fix it, make it better, please share. That's the requirement. And all I'll always say is, just pay us for our knowledge and know-how. The rest of it, you're free to learn on your own and use. Things like that. Thank you very much, everyone, for your time. I really appreciate it. Okay. Thank you, sir.